Hello, this is Summer Art Academy at the Knoxville Museum of Art. My name is Miss Hannah and I will be teaching Process Play Part 4 for 3 and 4-year-olds. Welcome back, artists. Again, my name is Miss Hannah. Today we will be using air dry modeling clay to create different types of pots. Then we will use our stamping skills to create some fun texture tiles. Are you ready? Friends, today we are going to be working with air dry modeling clay. Now, we've already worked with Crayola Model Magic, which is a synthetic clay, which means someone in a factory made it. But this type of clay is actually coming from the earth. It's basically dirt. And so what happens is when we were using the Model Magic, the more we worked with it, the easier it got to work with. And that's true for clay too, except the other thing that happens when we use clay is it wants water. It wants moisture. So it'll start taking moisture from our hands and get our hands dusty. And if we're working too much with it, we actually will start to dry it out. And that's why we have a bowl of water or even a sponge or a wet paper towel to help keep our clay moist. So if your clay becomes too dry to work with, just dip a finger in some water and add it to your clay, and you'll see it kind of develops a little slime that transfers onto your hands, but that will work it back into the clay. The other thing to know, especially for your adult helpers, is that clay can be pretty dusty and it can make a bit of a mess. So if you're really concerned, if you're working inside, make sure you cover your tabletop, or you can even go outside and work. The first thing we are going to make with our air dry clay is a pinch pot. And I like to start off by rolling the clay either between my hands like this or on the table like this. You may need both hands to make a pretty smooth ball. When I'm ready, when my ball is ready, I'm going to take my thumbs and press down in the middle like you're making a thumbprint cookie. Then you're going to get your pincher fingers ready. Go ahead and practice this pinching, and you're going to pinch the sides of the clay to form a wall. We're basically making a little bowl using our fingers. And you just keep going around the pot into the wall. It's about a 1/4 inch thick. It's like a dime, a little bit thicker than a dime. And you can choose what shape you want it to be. If you want there to be textures, like this one, you can see where my fingers have been. You can take some water and put it on your finger and smooth out any cracks. Just like this. Or you can even use a paintbrush and paint where the pieces are cracked and just smooth them out. You don't want to get the pot too wet, so just a little bit at a time. For me, the amount on my finger is perfect. And if you want to make this completely smooth, you just add water until the marks are gone. And so you can choose if you want it to be textured or smooth. And that, friends, is how we make a pinch pot. Now that we've learned how to make a pinch pot, we're now going to make something called a coil pot. Now for this, we're going to start off by tearing off a piece of clay, rolling it into a ball, and making a pancake. And again, remember, if your clay gets dry, just add a little bit of water. I'm going to press, just like we did with the Model Magic. Flip it over, press, make it nice and smooth. Make sure you can pick it up because clay likes to stick to your surface. And I have my pancake. Next, I'm going to get a smaller piece of clay, roll it into a ball. And once I have my ball, I'm going to roll it back and forth to make a long, thin coil or snake. When I have it as thick as I want it and however long I want it, I'm going to grab another piece of clay, make another ball, and make another coil. I like to make them side by side like this, so then I can make sure they're about the same width or distance around. You can make them different lengths and widths, but it's a little bit easier to work if they're about the same. I'm gonna get some water on my hands. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that and make 3 coils to start with. I can always make more if I need to. Whenever my hands feel dry, and just like with my clay, I can get a little bit of water onto my hands, or I can wipe them with a damp paper towel or sponge. Give my hands some moisture as well, and that helps working the clay. So I'm just rolling my hands back and forth. To make my coils. And you see how this one's actually longer than my others, and that's okay. Next, I'm going to learn how to do something called score and slip. And that's what I'm going to use my fork for. What I'm going to do is just on the edge of my pancake, I'm going to draw with my fork and just make lots of lines. Next, I'm going to do the same thing on the top of my coils, making just lots of little marks with my fork. You can also use a bamboo skewer or a stylus, but I think forks work really great and have extra teeth, so you get more marks. I'm then going to take my paintbrush, dip it in some water, and paint the water wherever I made a mark on my clay. Then I'm going to take the coil and place the marks I just made down on my clay and wrap around my pancake. And see how there's a little space left here? I'm going to take my fork and make sure I mark the end of my fork, mark the top of my coil. Whenever I score or mark my coils like this, and add the water, it helps my clay stick together. And I just connected my new coil to where that ended, filled in the gap, and start rolling like so. Get my fork, do the tops of the coil I just added, as well as the end. Paint with water. Connect the coil. And to connect these, I'm just going to score that space and build one on top of the other. And you can try to make your highest tower, or you can make a short one. You can do 3 coils, but you can just keep building coils until your coil pot is as high as you want it to be. So here's one that's a little bit more narrow, but taller. This one's getting a little bit abstract. It's almost becoming a square. And when you have decided you finished, you can just add some water. You can smooth your coils. Oops. with water. And the water helps just basically make a glue to keep your coils together. For our last clay project together, we are going to make a textured tile. To make a tile, I'm going to take a ball of clay and start off by pressing it down to make a pancake. And because this is thicker than what we're used to working with, it might take a little bit longer. So you might have to turn it over several times before it's pushed far enough down for us to move on to our rolling pin. Now I'm using a cut piece of PVC pipe here, but you can also just use a wooden rolling pin or a cut piece of dowel, anything that's round, smooth, and will let you roll out clay. Again, always make sure before you use something from the kitchen, you have the permission of your adult helpers. And I am just gonna roll my rolling pin back and forth. I'm switching my clay's direction, so I'm making sure when I roll it, it's even on all sides. And it's also helping make sure that the clay doesn't get stuck to my surface. It can get pretty hard peeling it up once it's stuck. So I make it nice and smooth. And you're gonna want it to be about as thick as your pointer finger. I'm an adult, so I have a bigger pointer finger, but about the thickness of your pointer finger. And once you have it nice and smooth, you're gonna take a square of paper and you're going to cut the edges to make a smooth tile. So you use that square of paper just like a stencil. If you have any cracks or breaks, just get a little bit of water on your finger or on a paintbrush and smooth it out. And I now have a square tile. Now it's time to decorate my tile. And I'm going to decorate my tile using different tools from my recycling bin. So I have a knife, a fork, a bottle cap. You could even use a cup to press down and make stamps. So I'm going to show you a couple of different textures. Put my stamp back on there. Using my knife to make some lines. I can even try to draw with my knife. Use my bottle cap to make smaller circles. Add some paint on there, but that's okay because I can just wipe that off. If you have a sponge or a damp paper towel, you can wipe it off. Or if you do something you really don't like, so like I don't like that line that I drew, I can take my damp paper towel and add a little bit of water to it and erase anything I don't like. So now I can try again. So, ooh. Now, if ever you really don't like something, you can start over just by wadding your clay up and trying again. So I've given you lots of ideas for what you can do with clay. You may even have some clay left over, and feel free to experiment with other styles of making. Thank you for joining me for part 4 of Process Play. Today we learned how to make pinch pots, roll snakes or coils, and turn them into a coil pot, and created our own texture tiles. Once they dry, you can use paint to add some color. Next time, we will be finishing our mystery project from part 2, while practicing fine motor skills such as lacing and paper punching.